Greetings and salutations, and this is Tech Plays here, back with more Sonic Generations, and we are continuing onto Sky Sanctuary Act 2. Originally, this was supposed to be a part of the last video, but the last clip had ended up running on too long, so I stopped the clip after Act 1 and just decided to rope this in with the challenges and such. So yeah. So we're moving on to Sky Sanctuary Act 2, which is, in my opinion, this is the... If I were to, like, compare this to Chemical Plant Act 2 and Green Hill Act 2, this is probably in the middle for me, because Green Hill Act 2 is my least favorite. Not to say it's bad, because Green Hill Act 2 is the better of the two Green Hill acts in this game. I think it's way better than the classic version, and it's really good. It's, like, literally the only bad stage in this game for me is Planet Wisp, and that's just because it drags on. The classic version of Planet Wisp is a little good for most of it, but then it just drags on. Like, if Planet Wisp Act 1 didn't drag on as much as it does, then I would adore the classic version of Planet Wisp, because I actually love the Spike Wisp and stuff. I love using it. I love the design of most of that level. I just hate how long it drags on. Planet Wisp Act 2 would just be trash regardless, because it's a lot of rocket spamming towards the end. So even if, like, the stage was, like, shortened, I don't think that would save it. I honestly think the Rocket Wisp, I don't think I'm the only one that thinks this, but the Rocket Wisp was probably the weakest Wisp to choose to bring back. Because it worked in Colors, because Colors had a lot of game design for it. But the way they use it in Generations is there's specific areas that you could use it in. I would have preferred if they brought back, like, the Drill Wisp or the Frenzy Wisp, because you could have done more with those. I feel like those two Wisps have, like, more opportunities. They could have also brought back the Laser Wisp if they wanted to. Like, any of those three would have been really good choices, but they chose the Rocket Wisp, which never felt like a good decision to me. Like, it's not bad. It's just they don't do much with it. It's a lot of, like, you only use it in 2D sections, which, to be fair, you'd also only use the Drill Wisp in 2D sections, but there's more you can do there. So having, like, the Drill Wisp, the Laser Wisp, or the Frenzy Wisp would have worked, because there's a bunch of stuff you could do with the Frenzy and the Frenzy, Laser, and Drill Wisp they didn't do in Colors. There's a bunch of stuff you can do with those for new game design ideas. Two of them work in 3D, Laser and Frenzy. And then Drill, even though it's restricted to 2D, you could, like, do a lot with it, and hey, if you wanted, you could find a way to make it work in 3D. I just think the choice for Rocket was weak. Hell, I would have taken Hover. I literally would have taken Hover. Hover was not a bad Wisp. I'm sorry, this might just be my bias speaking, but Rocket was one of my least favorite Wisps in Sonic Colors. Like, I love Spike, I love Hover, I love Drill. Those are probably my top three. I like Laser. I love Frenzy. That's also a really good one. I feel like Frenzy was, like, underutilized. Like, it was just used to destroy obstacles, but you could have done more with it than that. It would have been cool if, like, you had this whole obstacle course where you had to avoid breaking some things with it to keep the path, but then you could break other things. Oh, here we go.
Get in line, knucklehead. All right.
Sorry, I was shutting up to let Knuckles talk. This may be a hot take, because I have not seen anybody really like the new Knuckles voice all that much, but I actually do. I actually like, he's been voicing him since Team Sonic Racing, and I do like him better than Travis Willingham, But that is in part how they've chosen to write them, because this Knuckles has had good writing across the board. Even like, I know there's like there's a few like Ian Flynn haters that are going to bitch and moan about like some of the writing choices in Frontiers and this game. But let's be fair here, he's at least done a good job with Knuckles. And I think he's done a good job with most characters. I think the whole thing of people hating him just because the way he rates Amy is stupid. Because I feel like that more so is probably Sega's like choice. I think he just writes the characters and Sega tells him what direction they take it in. So I feel like people giving him shit for that is stupid. It's like people who would give Sonic Team shit for stuff in the past when it was Sega's fault for rushing them, not giving them enough time. Are people who like gave Big Red Button shit for the same thing when Sega rushed them and moved it onto a different damn console that couldn't handle the power the game was built around. Yeah, I'm still salty about that because like, as somebody who's a PlayStation player, that would have meant Rise of Lyric would have been on PlayStation consoles if the original plan had gone through, but it also means it would have been a good game. At least a decent one. Even if Sega still rushed them, like, it wouldn't be as, like, boring and buggy and shit as it came out. If Sega had just given Big Red Button the right to make it on the console that they were already developing for. They were developing for Xbox One and PS4, not the fucking Wii U. Sega will be Sega. Like, this is why I blame Sega for stuff, because when you start paying attention to details, a lot of it points back to Sega. Not Sonic Team, not Big Red Button, not Ian Flynn, not the voice actors. It points back to Sega. Because here's the thing, that's another thing, I want to point out the voice cast for the current Sonic games. I used to hate this voice cast, and I still hate some of them, I ain't gonna lie, but like, I used to really hate this voice cast, but it wasn't like the actors, because I've heard a lot of these actors in other roles that they've done really well in. But, you know, the first few games these actors were voicing the characters in, which was Free Riders, Colors, the original Generations, and Lost World, really had poor direction, a lot of it. Same with Forces. But, you know, there was a little bit of stuff between Forces that had better voice direction. We'll talk about that in a moment. But, like, the voice direction for the series has always been, like, inconsistent. Like, it's something I've noticed. Like, it doesn't matter the voice cast. There will be times where they sound good and times they sound bad because Sega wants this for a game. Sega wants that for a game. Like, I think the prime example is Jason Griffith and Roger Craig Smith both, who have both proven they can voice a good Sonic. They both have. Jason Griffith does an amazing job as Sonic in the last 3 games he voiced him in, which was Riders Zero Gravity, which there he was just good. He wasn't like as good as he would get. He was just good. And then in Unleashed, in both Unleashed and Black Knight, he was amazing as the character. Literally the best the character has ever sounded. And then they replaced him. They recast. But here's the thing. The reason he sounded amazing as the character is because they basically stopped the whole, oh, you gotta sound like Ryan Drummond thing, which is the original direction they gave him. If I remember correctly, I believe that was what the direction they gave him for Sonic X was, and they just basically had him keep doing that for a few games. He sounds way better when he's like doing his own thing, which is really what it sounded like he was doing in Unleashed and Black Knight and a little bit of Zero Gravity. But then there was also like Roger, who's had more examples than that. More examples of both bad and good than Jason. Because here's the thing, I think Jason at his worst is a better Sonic than Roger at his worst. but at their best, they're kind of like even. I would argue a little bit. And I know like I'm gonna piss off some people with that because Jason Griffith's the agreed upon best Sonic, and I agree he is, just because he's never sounded as bad as Roger has a couple times. But yeah, then you have Roger, who Sega's been like flipping back and forth with for his voice for Sonic. You want to know what I mean? Well, they had him do one voice for Sonic from, what was it? Free Riders all the way to Lost World. And that voice sucked. Like, I'm gonna be honest, it sounds decent, like, especially in the redub, because they do have him use the same voice in the redubbing they did of Generations for the rewrite. Like, his voice sounds a little better in the redub, but in the original Generations, it was still kind of awful. It was just less bad than the 3 games surrounding it, which was Lost World, Colors, and Free Riders, as I just mentioned. But he sounds awful in those 3 games, and then he sounds a little less awful, but still kind of meh in the original Generations. And then you get to, like, the entire Sonic Boom spin-off series. Not just the cartoon, not just the games, both. You get to Rise of Lyric, and as bad as that game is, the one thing I want to give it praise for is the line delivery, because that was the first time I actually respected Roger as Sonic and Cindy as Amy. Like, before that point, Tails' voice had been consistently good since the 4Kids cast started. Like, Amy Hallett was good, and then, like, Kate Higgins was good, and they recasted him with Colleen O'Shaughnessy, who's the best Tails voice. So, like, I was never, like, critical of Tails' voice, plus Tails is not one of the characters I like that well. He's, like, I don't hate him. I do like him as a character, he's just less so than, like, most Sonic characters. Is really my thing. Like, he's not one of my favorites, he's just a character I'm good with, you know? Like, I'm good with him existing. If that basically, explains it. But yeah, so I was never, like, I never worried about Tails' voice. And I'm gonna be quite blunt here, even with, like, okay, it actually might have been worse with the Boom, spin-off, because I hated how dumb Travis Willingham made Knuckles sound. Even when they gave him, like, smarter writing in Forces, he still sounded dumb as hell. And that's what I don't like about Travis's Knuckles. That's why I think the current Knuckles voice is better. Because, yes, his voice is a little deeper than the past Knuckles voices, but he doesn't sound like a dumbass. No offense to Travis. I'm pretty sure that wasn't Travis's fault. I think that was more Sega's. But still, the entire time he voiced the character, it just sounded like that. Like, I'm personally, like, my favorite Knuckles is Dan Green, right? And I feel like Dave B. Mitchell just sounds like a deeper voiced Dan Green, which is why I like him. I like him as Knuckles. He just sounds like a deeper Dan Green. Like, he doesn't sound like an idiot anymore. Which, again, might be the voice direction. It might have never been Travis's fault. But the only time when Travis was Knuckles that they didn't write him to sound stupid was Forces, and he still sounded stupid for some reason. And that's really my issue. Like, again, it might not be Travis's fault, it might be the writing. Not writing, it might be the voice direction. But either way, it's something. I still don't like that actor as Knuckles for one reason or another, you know? Like, no matter whose fault it is. In that instance. And it's nothing against Travis. I've heard him, like, do really good voices. Like, again, I've heard a lot of these actors do good voices. I've heard Roger in other stuff. I've heard Travis Willingham. And Knuckles' current VA in other stuff. I've heard Erica Lindbeck, who is the current voice of Blaze. And that's a part I want to get to. I am actually in favor of all the recastings they did in Team Sonic Racing. Because, okay, I had, like, before Team Sonic Racing, I hated half the voice cast. Some of which was just because they never had good voice direction before that point. Some of which because, I just didn't like the actor's take on the character, whether it was their fault or Sega's again. And Silver and Blaze were definitely two of them. I never really cared for Laura Bailey's or Quentin Flynn's Blaze and Silver because they sounded... Okay, Laura Bailey's Blaze just sounded like Laura Bailey. And that bugged me because, like... Here's the thing. All of Blaze's other voices sound like each other. To the point where, like... If you were to compare her, like, 4Kids voice to Erica Lindbeck, they sound almost the same. And that's what I like. I like the consistency with the voice cast. Like, I like when there's consistency. That's why I like Jason more than Ryan, or I like Jason more than Ryan and Roger, because Jason sounds a lot like Ryan, which stays consistent with Ryan, but then Ryan sounds nothing like Roger and vice versa. And then, I guess neither one sounds like Roger, but, you know, I can handle Roger. My favorite Sonic voice is Jason, and then second, I honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that I do respect Roger as Sonic now, there was a point where I actually was like, you guys should just cast the Sonic Prime voice, Devin Mack, as Sonic, like as the permanent voice, because he sounds like an in-between of all three of the game voices somehow. And I think that really works. And while he's not as good as like Jason, I actually do like him better than Ryan and Roger. I feel like I just pissed some people off, but I do, and here's the thing. I know, like, a lot of people don't like Sonic Prime because of the way it was written, and I kind of agree. I feel like the show was really good, like, had a really good premise and stuff, but it just was dragged on some things, had some really dumb ideas with that premise, like, I don't know. I'm not gonna go too deep into that. The show, to me, was like a solid, like, 7 out of 10. It could have been a 9 out of 10, but it's held back by, like, a lot of things, which is why it's a 7. For context, 7 is also what I give something like RE7 or Sonic Frontiers. Like, something that's good, but has a lot of things I don't like still. That's what a 7 usually is. If I have little to no complaints about it, it's a 9. If I think it's perfect, it's a 10. If I have a few complaints, but they don't really ruin the experience, it's an 8. 6 is decent. Like, it's good enough for me to enjoy it, but it's not good factually. Like, I don't think it's factually good. I just enjoy it a little bit. And then 5 and below is just bad. Just to explain what, like, my reviews on stuff would be. But yeah, I do think, like, the one part of Pride that nailed it was most of the voice cast. I think, who was it? Vincent Tong, who voiced all the alternative Knuckles. I feel like he would be an awesome mainline Knuckles voice, but Dave B. Mitchell is also pretty good, so I'm not really, like, not bothered that he's not the main Knuckles voice. Who was it that voiced Sonic? Devin Mack? I think he would be the perfect Sonic going forward if they ever needed to recast from Roger for whatever reason. I feel like Devin Mack is the way to go. And that's just my opinion. Also, I forget who the VA's name is, but whoever voiced Amy in Sonic Prime. No offense to Cindy, but even, like, I do have respect for Cindy now because I've heard her do a good Amy. Even at her best, I still feel like the Sonic Prime Amy and both the previous game voices for her really outdo her. At least at their best. Okay, the Sonic Prime Amy is consistently good, but there's times where the previous two VAs for Amy had some weak moments. Like, I think the, the Adventure era Amy voice kind of sucked in the first Sonic Adventure game, but this she kind of did really good in Adventure 2 and Heroes, and then Lisa Ortiz, the voice of Amy, the 4Kids era. Kind of didn't enjoy her in Sonic X. She was too late. She sounded too late. I don't want to use the word whiny because that's not the way the character acted. The character was just angry a lot, which was kind of funny. Like, I kind of do miss that part of Amy's character. I kind of miss the anger part of her character that was around for Sonic X and some of the 2000s games. I do miss that aspect of her character. So like, I am a little bothered by how like Sega wants Amy written now, but I blame Sega. I think it's their mandate. I don't think it's Ian Flynn. Because I feel like the current Amy works, but they should let her keep her like emotions, you know? Like, yes, I like Amy being less obsessed with Sonic. I think that's perfect. But let her keep her anger and her passion and all that stuff she had in the 2000s games and Sonic X and all that. I feel like that made her character. So, like, I'm a little mixed on it because I like this new direction, but I feel like they need to have those aspects of her character kept intact. And we haven't seen those aspects of her character since Free Riders. And that, I'm gonna be honest, that game was probably Cindy's worst performance as Amy because of how badly written they made her angry moments, and the fact that like they gave her really bad direction for that. But we've heard Cindy be angry as Amy a couple times, at least in the Boom cartoons I remember. She could do it. Like, they just need to bring it back. And I'm not saying make her like as angry as she was in like Sonic X. No, I feel like that would make people hate her, but you know, bring back the anger she had in like Sonic Heroes. Like, that was a more tame about. And she was always a passionate character. Bring that aspect back. They did kind of have that aspect a little bit in the in Sonic Frontiers and a few cutscenes, but they didn't really like. What the hell? How the fuck did I fall off the map like that? Okay, back to what I was saying. I'm just gonna stop this rambling now and just quickly go through, like, my opinions on each actor currently. Ignoring, because I already gave my opinions on the previous voices of Knuckles, Silver, Blaze, so we don't really have to bring them up. Actually, no, I can bring up SPO's previous voice, Troy Baker, who only got to voice him in, the original Sonic Generations, if I'm not mistaken. I think Troy did a decent job as SPO, but he's probably the weakest voice for the character. Obviously, my favorite voice for SPO is his Hero's voice, which is the one I can do an impression of. But I also like his 4Kids voice, and I like Matthew Mercer's SPO. Like, I think he's nailed SPO from the moment he appeared in Forces, and Forces had horrible writing, so that's saying something. Forces, to me, might be the worst written Sonic game ever. Like, seriously, I think that's why, after Forces, it seemed like with Team Sonic Racing, I don't know if I'm right about this, but it seemed like Team Sonic Racing had a different writer, at least going off how the characters were written. If not, then Sega was just like, okay, you guys need to step your game up and actually write these characters correctly. But I assume Team Sonic Racing had a different writer. I don't think it was Ian Flynn, because I don't think Ian Flynn came until Frontiers, but you know. But back to what I think about the voice actors. I think Roger is a good Sonic, just needs good direction. Khalid and Mike are always good Tails and Eggman voices. There's some things Mike has said lately that are problematic, but we're only judging the voice acting here. I'm not gonna get political. Cindy is a decent Amy. I feel like they could get a way better voice, but I'm not mad with her voicing Amy anymore because I've seen her do a really good job in both well, mainly in the Sonic Boom cartoon, but I've also heard her do a really good job in a few of the Frontiers cutscenes. I don't know, she's kind of mixed in Frontiers. There's like some really good lines and some really not. Okay, quickly going through. I think Kirk, who voices Shadow, Keith, who voices Vector, Matthew Mercer, who voices SPO,
Couldn't have done it
and
better myself.
Erica Lindbeck, who voices Blaze, are all perfect. They never need a recast. They've all proven themselves. They've all sounded perfect as the characters at one point or another. Erica Lindbeck always sounds good as Blaze since Team Sonic Racing, and same with Keith Silverstein as Vector. He's always been like the second best Vector voice after after the Hero's voice. And then the only ones I think really need recasting really bad still are Rouge, because her current voice has just always been horrible as a character. I'm sorry. She's never been good as the character. Cream, because her actress sounds like she's starting to struggle. And as much as I love Colleen as Tails, her charm, she's a terrible Charmy. And I'm sure, like, if you could find a new actress who could voice both Charmy and either Cream or Rouge, then you could still have the two characters be voiced by one actress thing. You can still have that going. But anyway, I'm going to end it off here. So, bye.